All right. You know what it is? You know who it is? We're back. We got episode 14 of the Fight Cast. Talking review of UFC Fight Night this past weekend, some boxing news, and then we got a preview of UFC 258, which I'm pretty excited for. I think it's going to be a really good fight. There's a few fights I'm excited to see, and I think that Usman versus Burns is going to be a pretty good contest. We'll get into that as we go. So we'll recap UFC Fight Night quickly. Alistar Overeem versus Alexander Volkov was the main event of the night, and it underperformed. I don't know. It wasn't a very good fight. Overeem just looked. I initially picked Volkov, and then I switched I saw some things, and I let the media get in my head, and I ended up switching my pick to Overeem, and he got whooped. And he just looked. I don't know. He just looked out of shape. He got hit once and didn't look like he wanted to be there. Bloodied in the first round, like right towards the end of the first round, he got hit 2 or 3 times, and I think he either broke his nose or got a cut on his forehead, one of the two, and he was like gushing blood. So it was not a good start. He like I said, just kind of looked like out of shape. He was moving timidly. He was on his, he was advancing for the first like minute of the fight, and then just got pushed back after he got hit a couple times. He caught Volkov like once or twice, but didn't really do anything to Volkov. And then Volkov just started pushing ahead and just used his distance because he was significantly taller than him, which I knew, but like you never like, I don't know, you never really see that as much or think about it as much until they're actually in the ring. And the octagon's so small that when a dude like Volkov, who's like 6'7", steps in front of like Overeem, who's I'm pretty sure is like 6'4" or 6'3" at least, and just like they're like this, and then you see it, and the reach makes that much of a difference, and like his kicks, and there's just no when two guys that big are in the ring or the octagon, there's like no room, and you see it right away. So like Volkov just reaches, and he really like I really like I'm impressed by him. I think that whoever he decides to fight next or whoever he gets his chance with next, whether it's Stipe or Ngannou or whoever wins this next fight coming up between Stipe and Ngannou, I think he's very much next in line. I know a lot of people that Cormier was talking. I think it was Cormier or whoever else was on there. They were talking about him possibly being the dude to beat John Jones, and because he's got like that type of skill. I don't know that he would beat John Jones, but he's definitely up there. He's got some skill. I should have stuck with my initial gut reaction because I thought that Volkov was that's who I saw last time he fought. He was that dude who showed up last night. But again, Overeem was on that title run. Now he's basically done. I don't know what he's going to do now. Whether the UFC keeps him on or they get rid of him or he goes and does something else. His title run's done. Volkov's is just getting started. He's got a lot more fights left. But second fight of the night, I don't know if you saw this. Corey Sandhagen, the kid I was talking about, that's just kind of like coming into his own right now into the UFC, absolutely starched Frankie Edgar with a flying knee, dropped the dude. And Frankie Edgar doesn't really get, knocked out, and he's been in the game for a while. But Corey Sandhagen, he put him out, and like he impressed. I think he's got to be next in line. And I'm hoping, from what I'm hearing and what I'm looking at, I'm hoping he is going to fight TJ Dillashaw for what would be like either the interim belt or the belt. I'm not 100% positive what's going on in that division. So it would be awesome to see him fight TJ Dillashaw because I think Dillashaw, coming off the time that he's not been in the ring and coming off of his steroid stuff, we'll see how much. I think he honestly loses to Sandhagen from what I've seen. This dude's like exciting. He's got like unorthodox style. He can move well. His last 2 knockouts have been a flying knee and a reverse kick to the forehead of his last dude that he fought. So he's showing out, and he's doing what he needs to do. His biggest problem right now is he's not talking, and he's kind of just like letting things go. But he said a decent amount on Saturday night after he won, and he thinks I think he gets a shot at the title next. And I think there's, like I said, I think there's a lot to be said about this kid. I think he's He's one of the ones to watch, especially in that division. And I honestly think he beats Dillashaw, and then whatever happens from there, happens. But yeah, so Overeem got destroyed. Sandhagen stepped up, so it was 1-for-1. Yeah, and then we unfortunately we had a podcast last week that wasn't downloading, but we talked about Caleb Plant, how his win, and then we talked about all the stuff that was going on between Canelo and Garcia and Pacquiao and all of that. But this week we got some new boxing news. We got some cool stuff coming up. We got a couple confirmed fights, one confirmed fight without an opponent, which we were just talking about. And we can break those down now. So Teofimo, his fight confirmed. And who's he fighting again?
George Kambosos.
George Kambosos. We got Joe Smith Jr. this weekend versus who was the guy he's fighting?
Maxim Vlasov.
That's a name. Maxim Vlasov. And then we got Broner versus a ghost right now, which we were just going over. So kind of break those down. You want to start with the fight this weekend, or you want to start with Teofimo?
Well, we'll start with this weekend's fight. Joe Smith Jr. If anyone knows him, it's because a few years ago he ended Bernard Hopkins' career. I mean, Bernard Hopkins was, 84 years old when he fought him, but Joe Smith put him through the ropes, and there's that image of Bernard Hopkins. He hit his head, I think, on like the timer or something. He's just sitting there going, it was not a good image for one of the greats. But Joe Smith was the guy that put him out, and then he knocked out Alvarez, the Alvarez that stopped Sergey Kovalev a couple of years ago. Joe Smith knocked him through the ropes. And now him and Maxim Vlasov are fighting for the vacant WBO light heavyweight belt on Saturday.
All
right. In terms of the actual fight, it is a hard one to call because, like, to be honest, man, Joe Smith is like one of those guys that, like, he's got some power and he's got really, really long arms for a guy his size. But there's nothing really like spectacular about him, and there's this joke in boxing, his name is Joe Smith and he's like super average, but I mean, he does carry some power. He's busy. He's got okay defense. Cement feet, though, doesn't move well. I mean, again, you shouldn't expect a light heavyweight to move that well anyway, but I mean, he's really bad. Vlasov, on the other hand, is again, he's Russian, so it's to be expected that he's technically proficient. Like, he's technically a really good boxer. He's even adapted some of the Philly half shell defense, the Mayweather. He implements the Mayweather shoulder roll a little bit. So I think it's going to be an exciting fight. I think a lot of punches are going to be thrown. I think both guys are going to get hit a lot. From what I've seen, Vlasov can't really take too much damage. He's been down before. Joe Smith is like one of those guys that, like, he strikes me as one of those guys that's like, he's like too dumb to go down. You know what I mean? Like,
ideas.
I mean, he's been like cracked a few times. I guess he broke his jaw. He had his jaw broken twice in a fight, like early on in his career.
Mm-hmm.
But he just strikes me as the kind of guy that's just too dumb to go down.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Joe Smith winning the title on a knockout in the 9th round.
Okay. I don't know.
Because I do think his reach is going to be, even though Vlasov is technically the better boxer, Joe Smith, the way, because they're so similar in the way that they attack, I think Joe Smith is going to have the advantage because of his reach. His arms are so long, and he's got he's got decent power in his right hand. So I'm going to go. It's going to be an accumulation of damage. I'm going to go Joe Smith, knockout, wins the title, 9th round.
All right. I don't know enough about either, but I looked up the picture of him knocking Bernard Hopkins out of the ring, and I'm going to go with him because I don't think the other guy has got one of those highlights. So
Yeah.
Go with Joe Smith. I'm going to go, if he's got longer arms, I'm going to say 5th round KO. He's going to catch him, and his cement feet aren't going to move, and that's it. So Joe Smith Jr., what's the other guy's last name? Blasov. We got 9th round KO, and I'm going with 5th round KO. So other than that, we got a couple more fights that have been confirmed this week. We got Teofimo versus, I forgot the guy's name that he's fighting. I just said it.
George Kambosos.
George Kambosos. And then we got Broner versus whoever. But Teofimo versus Kambosos. Teofimo's coming back off of his win off of Lomachenko. And he's, I would assume this is, I'll let you break this down.
Yeah, so Kambosos is the mandatory challenger. From what Tio has said, the plan is to fight Kambosos and win, then go on and try to get fights with Tank or Devin Haney. And then he says he wants to move to 140 and fight the winner of Taylor Ramirez. And so right now the Lopez Kambosos fight is, they said they're shooting for May or June. So Tio he said he just got back into the gym like this week, I guess. So he's in camp now. But we'll as we go forward, we'll do a full breakdown of, yeah.
I saw a video
because I'm actually kind of excited because Stu Kambosos is he's a fiery dude, and he's gonna give Tio a fight. So
cool. I saw a video. I forgot where exactly. I think it was on YouTube or Facebook or something like that. But it was Mike Tyson had Teofimo on his podcast, and they were talking. And he was sitting there, and he called Devin Haney. And
I saw that. Yeah.
Like, what's up, you ugly motherfucker? So stupid,
dude. Yeah, I know. And see, that's the thing, man. Like they keep like Devin Haney again because he's undefeated and he's a really slick boxer. His name keeps getting thrown in there with these guys that in my fucking humble opinion, I don't think Haney can hang with any of those dudes. I don't think Haney could, like, against Lopez, right? I don't think Haney could avoid enough of Lopez's shots for long enough to win a decision, and he certainly doesn't have the power to get him out of there.
Yeah.
And I think he has a better chance with a guy like Tank because Tank tends to get hit a little bit more, and Tank is naturally a smaller guy. But again, like, I mean, I don't think he could stay away from Tank long enough to not get hit with one of those bombs. So to me, like, Haney's name keep continuing to get thrown in there is kind of, I don't know. It's just for the fans, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to sound like, look, Devin Haney's a really spectacular boxer. Okay, so I don't want to make it sound like he's a bum. He's not. He's great. I don't think he has the tools, at least at this point in his career.
I think he's in the same boat as, like, maybe I think he's a little bit better, but I think he's in the same boat as, like, Ryan Garcia. When we talked about
he's definitely better than Garcia. He's definitely a better boxer than Garcia. He just doesn't like Garcia's got that pop in his shots that can end fights.
Mm-hmm.
Like we saw against Luke Campbell, he can make up for certain mistakes. I don't know that Devin Haney has that where he can get him, like, if he is behind in a fight, which doesn't happen because he is such a good boxer. But again, stepping up levels where guys are really fucking throwing bombs.
Yeah.
Can you stay away out of that danger for long enough to not get hit, score, your decision? And that's the difference between him and Garcia. Garcia doesn't necessarily have the boxing skill that Haney has at this point.
Yeah.
But he's got the equalizer. He's got power.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that Lopez and Lopez and Tank, they just got that. Doesn't like they have the skill, but they just have that one shot power. So it's just kind of like that's the great equalizer in all
Yeah.
things. Whether you lack anything, it's just power.
Right.
But yeah, and then another big name coming back for those of you, he hasn't been around for a little bit, but Adrian Broner has a confirmed fight. We were just talking before that no one knows who it is, though, or who he is actually fighting. I don't think there's a confirmed opponent, which is 8 days away. So hopefully they find somebody. There's a couple funny comments on the Instagram post. But Broner is one of those dudes who, and we've talked about him a couple times, but like if he's there, and like he does what he needs to do, he could be a problem in that division, and he could definitely cause some drama because he would be. I think he's in Terrence Crawford division, right?
Yeah.
So,
He's both.
and,
Yeah.
Over the last couple weeks and months, we've been talking about Terrence Crawford and him being in like that Canelo position and being in that spot where, if he's not going to fight Errol Spence, then who's he going to fight? And then like, if
I got
found something.
so yeah. Giovanni Santiago is who he's fighting.
Oh, all right.
I have no idea. I don't know who the fuck that is. Oh, hey, Otto Wallin and Dominic Brazil are fighting on that undercard.
Right.
Heavyweights. Both Wallin lost to Tyson Fury, and Brazil obviously got destroyed by Wilder. So there's some names. Oh, and this is next. There's a lot, man. There's a lot going on next week, though. Oscar Valdez and Miguel Berchelt are fighting, and Josh Kelly, dude, I was telling you about the Irish kid.
Yeah.
He's fighting next week too. Next week's a big week. Nice.
All right, we got some stuff to break down for next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Giovanni Santiago. I don't know who the fuck that is.
So, and this is, I think this is the plan. Obviously, I think they're going to get him in there with a bum, and they're going to get him. And just like Jake said, but I don't think they're going to bring Broner back and put him against someone difficult yet. I think him making his comeback, whether he's there to actually box or just to pay off some debts, I guess we'll see when he gets in there. For me to be excited about Broner coming back, I need to see like old Broner, and like he needs to get a knockout for me to even be like, interested in watching him fight again. Because if he goes in there and he does his own thing where he's not throwing punches, he's just shelling up, he's throwing 1-2 combos, and that's it. I don't think he's gonna make any noise. But if he comes in there first, second, third, fourth round stoppage and like actually shows like the skill that he once had, the power that he has, and like does it, because again, whoever this guy is, he's a boxer, but like if he's of any skill level, I still think for Broner to make noise in the division, I think he needs to do this. He needs to be there. And we'll break down the fight a little bit more as we do more research. But
so the dude he's 14-0 with 10 knockouts. So
all right, well then maybe.
But it seems like he may pose a little bit of a threat if Adrian Broner isn't like on his game.
Well, I guess we'll have to. We're gonna have to see. I don't think. That's a tough fight coming back. He's 14-0 at 10 knockouts. Yeah. He's been in jail for the past 2 years or something like that. That's not looking good. But
he was walking around with a big bubble gut for a while.
Yeah, I know. He blew up. I saw a picture of him for a while and I was like, what the fuck, dude? But from what I've seen from his Instagram, he's picked it up. He's been training. He's dropped like 30 pounds, he said.
He does. Yeah, he does look healthy. He looks good.
Looks good. The only thing is when I see his training, it kind of reminds me of like, I don't even know. Like, it just doesn't look right. Like, he just doesn't, like, his punches don't, like, whenever he does mitts, he's always like here. And he's just like, he's not doing much. And the guy's like going.
Because they're not, they do the Mayweather shit where the shit that you see is like that's just to get in rhythm. Okay. That's basically, so like any shit that you see on Instagram where people are like doing mitts and are doing that no look shit. That's not shit that helps you win fights. Yeah. That's sort of to get you in rhythm, get your arms loose, you know what I mean? Get that timing down. And then you start throwing actual combinations, you know what I mean? Start, throwing some counters, and you start actually doing real work. They're not going to show that. They're not going to show the real work they're doing. They're showing the stuff that looks pretty.
You know I mean? Well then, yeah. So, whatever it is that they're showing, I'm not impressed by it yet. I want to see him come in. I want to see him actually earn the win. not like a decision. Like I want to see him go out there and like actually take the win before I'm like, all right, he's back. And like I said, it excites me because I honestly think that if Broner is good and he like actually shows up, he could put like a dent in that division. It might make it a little bit more interesting because he could be like that, you know, that foot in the or the just like the breakup between that Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford type thing where he could step in and at least be a name that makes it a little bit more.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
Even Adrian Broner at his best, I don't think is beating Bud Crawford. Maybe like peak level Broner could beat Spence.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's beating Crawford.
Well, no, but again, I don't,
Yeah.
and I don't expect him to. I just think it'd be, because right now, like we've talked about, is Terrence Crawford and Spence are like the two that are going to fight each other. And like if they're not fighting each other, then who are they going to fight?
Right.
It's just like he could come in and at least, win a couple fights, or they just like win one fight and he's just in the conversation, which depends on how he wins. But and at least be something a little bit more exciting to maybe then bring Spence and Crawford together, or whoever else is in that division can, come up and say, hey, I fought Broner and I beat him. And then, Broner, and like I said, I think Broner can come in and at least give that factor of like, he could do it. Yeah, he very well could, I don't think he can beat Crawford, but like against Errol Spence, he very well could, has that chance as always, that like he could come in and like mess up the entire division. And I don't know that either of those guys would take that fight just because of I feel like they wouldn't because of like Broner's name. And like, or they would because of his name, but they wouldn't because like, depending on how he looks, he could pose a threat in a lot of ways that could like derail that entire thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in that case, then it might force Spence and Crawford right at each other.
Yeah.
If it's like, if it's they're in this situation where like, okay, Broner's available, it looks like he's back. But I mean, what is a win? What does a win over Broner, who's been in and out of boxing for these last few years, what does it do for me, right? And so it's a high risk, low reward.
That's right.
Might as well go fight Crawford. Might as well, right? They might as well fight each other.
That's why
at least the risk is high, but the reward is high. With Broner, high risk, low reward.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking he has to come out if he want. I think if he wants those fights, he's got to come out and like prove it right now. Like it's just like you're gonna go against this guy, like you got to knock him out, and it's got to be a decent showing. It can't be the fucking shell up and not throw. But yeah, so Broner's fighting next weekend. As Jake said, we got Joe Kelly fighting next weekend, and a bunch of other fighters coming up that we'll talk about and break down. And so obviously we talked about the Ben Askren, Jake Paul a little bit, and the Logan Paul Floyd fight getting canceled, along with all the stuff that was going on with that, where Floyd said he's going to fight 50 Cent. He's going to fight Logan. Then he's going to fight Jake Paul. There's, as I said, I get more and more, just to cover this quickly and we can get over it, but like less interested in seeing this fight every time I see Ben Askren train. And I haven't seen much of it, but like from what I've seen, it just hasn't been good. And
he's fucking trash, bro.
Yeah. I mean, the only way I see the only thing I see happening here is that Jake might not be good enough at this point to I think he's gonna have some trouble with this fight, just for the simple fact that I don't think he's just gonna be able to like one punch Ben Askren. I don't, and I like to think that even in a month or two of training that Ben Askren can put something together that can actually resemble a fighter. Whereas Nate Robinson, was not moving in any which way that was resembling a fighter. I think he can at least give it a couple rounds to see what happens when Jake Paul gets put under stress. And I think that's really why, as I start to think about this more, that's why this fight was made. Because I don't think Ben Askren is just going to get like put down, but I don't think Jake Paul has any fear that he's actually going to lose this fight.
No, listen, what's going to happen because Ben Askren can't throw a punch, and because 2 months is not enough time to figure out how to throw a punch correctly. Yeah. As soon as he does throw, but because Jake Paul is reckless and he doesn't know how to box, and he just, he's heavy-handed and he knows that, and so he just throws shots. What's going to happen is as soon as Ben Askren steps into the danger zone, starts to throw with those fucking noodle arms, Jake Paul's going to put his fucking head down and let those bombs go, and Ben Askren is going to get caught because he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
Yeah.
So he's probably not going to last very long at all.
Yeah.
Because from all the shit that I've seen Ben Askren do, he doesn't have the footwork to move in and out of danger like that.
Yeah.
Right? Certainly doesn't have the head movement. So as soon as he leaves himself open, which is when he throws a shot, which he doesn't know how to fucking throw a shot at all, he's going to be open and something's going to land. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. It's kind of like when I was talking about Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson, is that it's like a bar fight. Like any one of them can get knocked out because neither of them know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing, except now it's like we know I never saw Nate Robinson throw a punch, so I don't know. I didn't know, right? There was unknown.
Yeah.
I've seen Ben Askren throw a punch and I've seen him move around. He's gonna get blown the fuck out real quick. As soon as he throws a shot, because he doesn't his shots are weak. There's nothing behind them. He doesn't he doesn't turn right, doesn't turn his hands over. So as soon as that shot is out there, there's all this time where he's left open, and he doesn't know how to get his hands right back. He doesn't know how to bang, right? And then come with something else right after. Yeah. It's going to be a couple shots, wild noodle arm shit, and then those big shots of Jake Paul's are going to come in, and he's going to get put to sleep real quick.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Stupid, Jew fro that he's got going there. Watch, we're going to see slow motion. He's going to throw a punch. I'm telling you, this is exactly what's going to happen. He's going to throw a punch, right? And as he throws his punch, he's going to get cracked with something. That fucking fro is going to go spinning around his fucking head, and he's going to go to sleep. Watch, we're going to see it in slow motion. It's going to be a fucking meme. I'm telling you.
We're going to clip this when that does happen, and we'll put it on. I do think he's going to get knocked out. I just don't, like I said, I think that the reason they pick this type of fight is because they know it's not going to be Nate Robinson, and they know it's not going to be, an actual fighter, or I shouldn't say an actual fighter, an actual boxer. And it's somewhere in between where I think Ben Askren will take a couple. I think he's going to be able to take a couple. And then, it's going to put Jake Paul past the second round probably for the first time in his career at that point.
Well, the one thing that I think that you're sort of on track here with is that Ben Askren, he does have experience enough as a fighter to not run into shots.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Like he I could see him trying to feel things out. The problem is, again, once he steps into that range of Jake Paul and he throws something and something gets thrown back, that's when it becomes.
Yeah. I'm like I said, and obviously this fight's we're gonna see more of it, and I'm sure there's gonna be more of like from both sides, more of like this.
I can't believe that I'm even breaking this down.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? Like how much this fucking, like I just said that and then it just hit me. It's like, what am I doing? Why am I even bothering?
Well, I'm sure there's going to be more of like a video thing going along with it, like the Showtime following, what do you call it? Like
the all access?
All access, yeah. I'm sure there'll be some type of all access.
Oh, yeah, because I'm sure it's going to be so fucking interesting watching these two idiots.
Yeah. Well, it's more about the spectacle than it actually is the fight itself. But on top of that, we again, last week the podcast got fucked up a little bit, but Logan Paul, Floyd Mayweather got canceled. Nobody wanted to watch it, so they canceled it, and they said that there's going to be interest next time around. So I think it's done. I don't think they're going to do anything with it. I think they're talking about it. Jake Paul was calling out Floyd, and Jake Paul's just calling out everybody, and he's just being a tool at this point. But Logan Paul, I meant to watch a video on YouTube. He talked about why it specifically was being canceled, which I don't think he was saying it was because of the interest, but whatever. I don't think anybody wants to see it.
No one wants to admit that. No one's gonna admit that. Where it got pushed back because no one fucking gives a shit. Like no one's gonna say that. You know what I mean? But we all know that's why.
Yeah. So whatever goes on there, I honestly couldn't care less about it. As long as when Jake Paul's, I just want to see Jake Paul step in the ring with someone who's actually going to hurt him. That's it. As soon as he steps in.
Yeah. At this point, he's obviously going to keep doing it because people want to see it. let him work his way up into fighting an actual boxer and then die in the ring.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then we could all be happy.
And then we can just leave off this topic for eternity. But for right now, we got to talk about it.
Yeah.
So UFC 258 this weekend. We got a bunch of good fights. It's a pretty good card overall. We got Macy Barber is going to be on the card, and she's like an up and coming star. Kevin Gastelum, Ian Heinisch, I think is how you pronounce his last name. And then obviously in the main event, we got Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. Now, the story here between Usman and Burns, I don't know if do you know either of these guys?
I know that I remember Gilbert Burns is not like a really frightening guy. I know that.
I mean, it depends on, I mean, he's definitely a good fighter. He's up and coming. He's been around for a little bit, but this is his shot to really kind of take that step forward. He's not really like a striker by your terms. He's a grappler. He's a black belt. He's like a high level jiu-jitsu guy. This fight could have a potential to be very grappling heavy. Kamaru Usman has what Connor calls the jockstrap sniffing style, where he just kind of puts his face in your stomach and your chest and like in yours and just kind of like holds you there and just tries to wear you out. He does this. It's such like a corny tactic. Like he gets you against the wall and he stomps on your foot with his heel.
Yeah.
He just like really hard, just like stomps on the top of your foot, which I would fucking hate if I was a fighter because it probably kills. But it's going to be a good fight. I think that, Usman is the current welterweight champion of the world, which is the 170 division. And he's a very skilled fighter, and a lot of people consider him to be one of the GOATs. He's undefeated. His couple last fights that he's had, or no, he has one loss, sorry. But, his last couple fights that he's had were really good. He beat Jorge Masvidal, but that was on short notice, and that was supposed to be against Burns, and that was supposed to be last year. Jorge Masvidal had his moments, but again, it was on 6 days notice, and he lost like 27 pounds in 6 days and still managed to get that fight in on Fight Island. So it was just, there was nothing in favor of Masvidal there in terms of winning that fight. And then in 2019, Usman had his, coming out party, essentially. He beat Tyron Woodley for the belt, and then he beat Colby Covington, who is just like a loudmouth, who was the interim champion at the time. And he, and they could very well fight again because Covington had a really good last fight. I forgot who exactly he fought, but he had a very good last fight, and he dominated. Oh, he fought Tyron Woodley. Duh, forgot about that. But he destroyed Tyron Woodley for the most part, and basically he tapped out. But so that could definitely be coming up after this. Now, the main story behind Usman and Burns is they were teammates. So these guys were both teammates inside of, I forgot the gym they went to in South Florida, but they were teammates for years. And Usman actually cornered Gilbert Burns in one of his last like 3 or 4 fights, I think. And they're really good. They're friends. They're teammates. They've sparred a lot. They've, fought a lot. And the story going around right now is that one of these guys knows what they know about the other. Like one of these guys knows the other guy can beat them, essentially. And when it comes to teammates, and this is why you don't often see this, because teammates more often than not stick together. And if they don't, it's not really in terms like these guys don't necessarily hate each other. They're not talking shit about each other. They're just kind of like keeping it very cordial. They're keeping it very much like, just two good guys just about to fight. Whereas like, you get the TJ Dillashaw, like the last big like teammate debacle that comes to my mind is Dillashaw versus Garbrandt. And they were both at Uriah Faber's gym. And that was ugly. Dillashaw left. Garbrandt was pissed, and like they were just talking shit about each other. But it was one of those things where it was just like an ugly feud. And I don't think this is an ugly feud. I think this is just two guys trying to get the belt. And one of them is just, this is his chance. And he knows that like there is no other chance. So it's just, you got to fight your friend or you don't get the belt. And I think they're both aware of that. But Usman I'd say he's a pretty heavy favorite for this fight. He's minus 270. Now, I think Usman is he's definitely a better striker overall. I think that if Gilbert Burns gets him on the ground, he's going to be in trouble. And I think that this dude Burns is just kind of like a bull. Like he's gonna. I don't think Usman's style is going to necessarily work with Burns because of how much of like a bull he is. And he's not a terrible striker, again, by Jake's terms and what Jake would consider a good striker. He's not. He's very much like a head down, just kind of throwing type person. But he's a grappling heavy guy. He's had some knockouts his last couple fights, and he's shown up. So I'm interested to see what Burns does here early on, and if he tries to take down Usman or if he tries to stand with him. Because Usman is a good grappler. I don't know that he's as good as Burns. And like I said, there's something that's not being said here. And I saw a video earlier where Burns was talking about it, and he says that Usman knows I can submit him. So I'm assuming what happened here in training is that Burns dominated him on the ground or would get him down and, really had his way with him on the ground. And maybe Usman caught him a couple times standing, and that's just kind of how it's going to go. But it seems like Burns is coming into this pretty confident that he's going to win this fight. Usman is as well, but it's like a different type of confidence from Burns. Like it's that like, yeah, I got you already type of confidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's been anything like this in boxing in terms of like teammates fighting each other or people that were like sparring partners and like go to like,
There's been
to me,
lots
this
of,
is a pretty deep, like to corner someone in a fight means you trust that person a decent amount. You know what I mean? And then like to have to fight them now on the opposite side of the ring for a belt, it's just kind of like a weird environment that's like seems very abrasive to me. That's like really hard to deal with. So, like I said, it's to me, I want to pick Usman in this fight, and everything tells me to go with Usman, but I feel as though Burns knows something that everybody else doesn't, and knows a way in which he's going to take this fight. And he just seems like he's in that position where he's going to. Now, with that being said, Usman really is like, he's a pretty boring champion, but he is like a champion. And he's a dude who's earned his stripes to this point. He's had some big fights. And when he's had his fights, he's won convincingly. There hasn't really been anything that was like too close with him to like call. And, he's really come on in the last few years, but I have to go Burns here. I think Burns is going to win. I think what's going to happen is he's going to, like I said, I think he's going to beat a lot early on. And I'm interested to see what Usman does to kind of, keep him at bay. But the problem is I think that Burns is going to be there late no matter what. And if that's the case, meaning he's not going to get tired, then I think that Usman is going to be, he's not going to be in a position that's going to be good for him. Cause I've seen, the last couple fights, he has a tank too, and he doesn't really get tired. And when he fought his last big fight against Masvidal was exhausted really. And Colby Covington, he caught early on and just kind of dominated that fight. So we'll see what happens. I think Burns is going to win. I think he's going to do it by submission. And I think he's either going to do it by submission late or he's going to do it by decision. So we'll see what happens here. But the other two fights we got Macy Barber, who I'm really excited to see. She's a dynamite. She's just like a bomber. Just I'm almost positive she like tore her ACL last fight and continued and won. And the guy, like I can remember correctly, I think it was her. She tore her ACL, and then the ref came out, literally moved her tibia, and was like, "Oh yeah, it's torn ACL. She's good to go." And then she just fought. And it was like gross. Like you could literally see her because that's one of the tests for an ACL. It's like if you tear it, you can like move the tibia back and forth. And he was just like, "Yeah, it's a severely, or it's like something torn ACL, but she's good to go." And she just fought. So she's a badass. I think she's gonna be Alexa Grasso. I think she's gonna knock her out. I'll say second round KO. And then we got Kevin Gastelum versus Ian Heinisch is gonna be a good fight. I think that overall Heinisch is one of those dudes that I think that he's a bomber. Like, I think he's got a lot of power and he's got a lot of skill, but I think that Gastelum is, I just hate the way that Gastelum looks. Like, he just doesn't look like a fighter. You know what I mean? Like, he's just kind of like oddly shaped and his legs are really small, but like, he gave Izzy probably his hardest fight of his career. And one of the fights that Izzy, I've seen talk about, or I don't know if he's talked about it, but like when you watch over the fight, it's, Gastelum knocked him, basically stunned him, and I've never seen Izzy get stunned. And he was there late, but then Adesanya just kind of like put it on towards the end and dominated. So I think Gastelum's going to win here. I think he's going to come in with a knockout, and I think it's going to be pretty convincing, and he'll be back on track. So to kind of go here, we got Gastelum, we got Macy Barber, and then we got Gilbert Burns, who's a heavy underdog. But I've had my experience with underdogs in the last few weeks, and it's been going terrible when I pick the over or the favorite. So I think that Burns is going to win. I'm still here. This is the podcast, but I'm still thinking about it. So I may change my decision, but the official prediction right now is going to be Burns. On top of that, I don't know if you saw Nate Diaz had an interview. I love listening to that dude talk. He's such an idiot. He had an interview with Ariel Helwani, and he was just he had one of probably like the funniest lines I ever heard. He was talking to Helwani, and Helwani was saying there was a boxer that said like it's hard to wake up in the morning when you're sleeping in satin sheets. Do you know who that was? I don't know I forgot who he said it.
I know, but I can't. It's not coming to me.
Anyways, so he was talking to Nate Diaz about it, and he said that quote to Nate Diaz, and Nate Diaz is like, I don't even know what satin is. He's like, what's satin? He was, and Helwani's like, it's a very comfortable. He's like, it's a very comfortable material, and he's like, is that what you got on? And he's like, no. He's like, I'm not there yet. And he's like, oh, all right, whatever. And like, the interview was 42 minutes. And if you get a chance and you want to listen to it, definitely do it. But the reason I bring that up is last week we talked a little bit about the lightweight division, or tried to, because I keep forgetting, but tried to talk a little bit about the lightweight division and like what's coming of this because of all the change that's going on and all the ins and outs of like Conor and Dustin and Nate was supposed to be in the mix for Poirier. But from what I understand right now, he's stepping back and saying, I'm not fighting at 155. If he's going to fight these guys, they're going to come to 170. Poirier says he's going to go to 170 and he'll leave the division, which is just like, it doesn't make any sense what's going on here. But essentially, Nate's saying he wants to fight 2 times this year at minimum, 4 times max. And he wants to fight Conor. He wants to fight Poirier. He wants to fight Oliveira. I think Oliveira and Diaz would be an absolute, great fight. Probably not for you, because I don't think that it'd be probably a grappling heavy fight. But, there's just kind of like this in and out right now of Nate Diaz there. Like he's just kind of caught in like nowhere's land, because if he doesn't want to come down to 155, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for Oliveira or Poirier to go to 170, because if they lose, no one gains anything. But if they win, again, no one really gains anything. And like the Poirier has a title fight coming up that whoever he fights next is going to be for the title. And then if Oliveira leaves and wins at 170 or loses at 170, like that doesn't do anything for 155. So it's just a bunch of stuff that's going on. But Nate Diaz kind of like came out and gave us a little bit more direction, saying that he's not fighting at 155 and that he wants to fight at 170. So really right now, lightweight, it's looking like if Dustin doesn't want to fight Michael Chandler, it's going to be Conor and Dustin. And I don't see any other way in which this is going to go unless something crazy happens between Oliveira and Poirier. So I don't know. And like I said, I think that what's going to happen here is Diaz will get his fight. I think he really wants to fight with Masvidal. That he wants to run that back, and then he wants to fight Conor again. And I think he also wants to fight Poirier. And I think Diaz can be talked down into coming to 155. I think he's just kind of like putting his foot in the sand and being like, if you want me to come down there, you're going to have to pay me. Yeah. So I could easily see him coming down to 155 and fighting Poirier for the belt, because it doesn't really, him staying at 170 right now doesn't really make much sense in terms of his goals, because he would have to win at least a fight or two to get into the belt conversation at 170, or at least come back and beat like Masvidal or like a Colby Covington or someone like that. And I don't even know if he'd fight Colby Covington, but 155, he could step in and get like an immediate shot, I think. So he's got to weigh those options, but I think he's just kind of like playing hard to get with 155 because he's saying it's a dead division and he's got nothing to chase down there. And so it was definitely a good interview, and like it gave a lot of insight into him because he's been a name that's been thrown around a lot over the past couple of weeks since all of this ended. But as of right now, we know two things: Khabib's not coming back, and Nate Diaz isn't fighting at 155. So there's 4 names right now that I see that are like in this box here that are going to possibly be matchmaking, which is Poirier is up here, and then there's like a triangle underneath of Connor, Oliveira, and Chandler. And then however they want to mix this up and figure that out. I think Connor's obviously in the lead, and then these two are going to have to like earn it in some other way, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, I mean, other than that, we'll review. We got UFC 258 picking Burns right as of right now. I'm picking Burns, even though my heart says Kamaru Usman. I think my gut is telling me Burns. Macy Barber, I think, is going to win. I think she's going to knock out Grasso, and I think Gaslam's going to win. And then we got Joe Smith Jr. this weekend. Me and Jake both picking for knockout. Jake's picking by ninth round. I'm picking 5th round. And then next week we got a bunch of boxing to talk about. We'll break down all these fights. We'll break down Broner. We'll break down Joe Kelly, right? His name, or John?
Josh Kelly.
Josh Kelly. They're both wrong. Josh Kelly, the Irish guy. So we'll break that down.
And the biggest one, Oscar Valdez and
Oscar Valdez. Yep. So we got that fight as well. We'll break all that down. I'll do my research and make sure I know about the opponents as well. And we'll go from there. Any last minute things?
No, man. Watch this fight. It's on ESPN this weekend. It's free. Watch it.
Yeah. UFC is not free. So I'm even going back and forth. This isn't a fight to me that it's almost like worth paying the money for it. But
free title fight on ESPN. That's where it's at, man.
Yeah. I might have to go the boxing route. We'll see, and then catch up with UFC because $70 is not cheap for this fight, and none of these guys are really like. It's just one of those things with the UFC. One of these guys is just not like, they're not paper pushers. Let's just put it that way. I hate Colby Covington, but like he had a good line when he fought Kamaru Usman. He's like, you couldn't draw money on a white piece of paper with a green crayon, and he's just not. Kamaru Usman's just not like a good. He's just kind of like a corny champion. I don't know. Yeah. But anyways, I appreciate you guys for listening to this point. Sorry about last week's episode. We're going to get this one up, and this will be there. I'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Hey.